Hi, I'm Lori Duffy. I'm a clinical social worker and I'm the behavioral health consultant here at Kingstown Pediatrics.
Lori, thank you so much for coming on with us today. We're super excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've really been looking forward to this episode. On October 19th, the American Academy of Pediatrics declared an emergency in relation to pediatric and adolescent mental health concerns.
Suicide is the number 2 cause of death for young people.
And because of that, here at Kingstown Pediatrics, we want to make sure we're giving you enough resources and support so that you can help your young person if there is a mental health concern or a more serious concern like suicide.
So one of the questions that we've been receiving a lot is, how do I know the difference between what's normal teen angst or moodiness and what's depression? What's something that I should be more concerned about?
Sure. So let's talk about what's typical and what parents are typically reporting. So as we can probably remember, when we were teenagers, we probably spent a decent amount of time in our room. We probably wanted to be with our friends more often. So it's very common for kids to do all of those things. On top of that, kids have access to a lot of social media and they want to look at those things in private. So that is all normal, right? So teenagers being in their room for extended periods of time, Mom, Dad, leave me alone, close the door, wanting some privacy, but also some basic irritability is really common. Asking them to take their laundry downstairs into the basement. Oh, I don't have time for that. Those types of things are very, very common. No need to be concerned with that.
Okay, that's really helpful. When should we be concerned?
Sure. So usually when I talk to families, we want to see if there's a list of multiple areas of concern. So not only is your child spending a lot of time in their room, are they on social media a lot, but are they just cranky towards you, or are they cranky about their friends? Are they complaining about friendships? Are they complaining about school? Are they complaining about the types of things that used to bring them joy? Are they not wanting to go to work anymore? Are they thinking about quitting a sports team? Are they not doing their after-school clubs? Those are some additional things to be concerned about.
Gotcha. And what would you recommend as that next step for a child that's showing those behaviors?
Sure, and especially if they're having some of those, and then also if they're not sleeping well, if they're not eating well, and if you suspect any substance use, alcohol use, or any type of substance use whatsoever, it's time to have a talk with your teen.
So that sounds like a super daunting conversation. Where do we even begin?
Sure. So what we don't want to do is to tell our young person, we need to talk. We don't want to overwhelm them and stress them out and make them shut down before the conversation has even happened. One of the best places to have a talk with a young person is in the car, where they don't have to look at you, you don't have to look at them. You can ask questions and they can feel free to speak a little bit more and not be so concerned what the reaction might be. And then asking really open-ended questions, things like, hey, how have you been doing lately? Are things overwhelming for you right now? This has been a really busy year. How do you think you're managing all of that? And then always using I sentences. I've noticed that you seem really preoccupied, or I've noticed that your mood seems really low and I'm worried about you and I want to be able to help you. Those are some ways where you can start.
Yeah, and coming from a place of empathy instead of criticism, because I feel like teenagers, from our experience, the second the parent starts to say using those you statements, they shut down, even if it is from a place of love and concern.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that. A young person is much more likely to talk to us and open up to us if they know that we get it. So, think about when we were all younger and we were teenagers. Would any of us go back and do 15, 16, or 17 years all over again? Most of us wouldn't. So
maybe with clear skin and without braces,
Absolutely. So going to our young person and so that they know that we understand that the teenage years are hard. We're not trying to minimize that. They are having to deal with so much, multiple relationships, changing relationships, the heavy load of academics, teachers and other people saying, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Boyfriends, girlfriends, work, jobs, expectations, and social media. We haven't even started talking about social media yet.
Right. Well, why don't we go there, Lori? What are your recommendations about social media for those adolescents that seem to be using social media throughout the day, constantly.
Sure, social media is everywhere. Our young people are completely consumed by it. There are some aspects of social media can be great, but there's also way more negatives than there are positives. So talking to our young people about how much time they're spending on it, and if they're spending more time on it and you're noticing this decrease in their mood, then social media probably isn't helping them and definitely could be hurting them as well. So talking to them about maybe limiting some of their time. How many social media apps are they on? Facebook, Insta, TikTok, we could go on and on. Maybe they can cut back on some of those, or stop following unhealthy personalities, unhealthy sites. And also you can snooze and pause unhealthy friends and relationships. Doesn't mean that you have to get rid of them altogether, but you can pause some of those and just take a break.
And I know when you and I were chatting, you said restricting social media altogether is probably not your best approach, right?
Probably not, because they're going to get angry and frustrated, and they're going to see you as being very authoritative and not collaborative with them and helping them try to problem solve. You're just kind of pointing your finger and telling them what to do. Taking away social media is not going to solve all of their problems, so we have to work with them, not against them.
Right. And even limiting time, screen time, is there a gentler approach to that you can think of? You know, and I feel like, you know, if you say you can only have 1 hour, you can only have 2 hours, that becomes a battle at that 2 hour mark for a lot of our families.
Right, absolutely. And then is that the power struggle that you want to go through that day? Is that the hill that you want to die on that day with your young person?
We could do a whole other episode on that.
There's so many issues that you could be dealing with. But maybe talking to them about like how much time they're spending on it between after school and when they start their homework, or how much time are they on it before they go to bed at night? Can they shut it off? Can they do something else? Can they watch a TV show? Can they put on a more positive YouTube channel or something like that, rather than just flipping through their phone at one unhealthy message after the other?
Yeah, teaching them to be healthy consumers of social media, because it's not going away. This is something that will carry into adulthood for them, right?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that we as practitioners are really worried about, and it's one of our biggest concerns when we go into a room when we know there's a mental health complaint, is this person safe? Are they suicidal? Are they at risk for self-harm? And that's an even heavier topic to kind of assess as a parent. How do you even begin to broach that subject?
Sure. Most parents report to me that they are very, very scared to ask their child if they are feeling suicidal or if they've had thoughts of self-harm. The one thing that I tell my families over and over again is that you are not planting a seed by asking if someone has thoughts of harming themselves or dying by suicide. If the thought is there, it's there. If it's not there, you're not adding to it. So going to your young person, and it might seem dramatic. Some parents are like, well, why would I ask my child that? Because you just don't know. Kids, just like we adults, we're very good at hiding our emotions. Young people want to protect their parents from the emotions that they're experiencing. They don't want to be a bother. They don't want to stress their parents out. So going to your young person and just saying, I wanted to ask you, have you had any thoughts about harming yourself? Have you harmed yourself? Kids do lots of things for non-suicidal self-injury, such as burning, cutting, hair pulling, excessive substance use. Over-exercise can also be a form of self-abusive behavior. And then taking that question one step further. Have you ever thought about dying by suicide? Have you ever thought about taking your life? Have you practiced it? Have you collected items to take your life? Again, you're not planting the seed. I just say that over and over and over again, because that's usually parents' biggest concern. But saying it and putting it out there is going to be a huge relief for that young person if they are contemplating that or have contemplated that in the past.
I think another important point to make is that you shouldn't be afraid to ask even your young children about those thoughts. I know we're talking about adolescents, but unfortunately some younger children will display some of those behaviors and concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially over the last year and a half, 2 years with COVID and so many changes, we're seeing kids younger and younger coming into the office for assessment for non-suicidal self-injury, so different types of self-harm like we were talking about before, but also young kids contemplating suicide as well. I evaluated a 7-year-old this year who just had so many changes in their life, and they just said, I want to die, I want to die, I want to to die. So not just teenagers, but younger children as well.
So, Lori, what do you do for your teen that doesn't want to talk to you?
Sure, because sometimes they will and sometimes they won't, but if you feel like you're just kind of hitting that wall and you're not getting anywhere, but you still desperately want to help your young person, first thing I would consider is, are you really the best person to talk to your child? Maybe there's a trusted aunt, an uncle, a family member who that young person might feel a little bit more comfortable to open up, or might feel less guilty talking about their feelings because they don't want to stress out the parent. They might actually be trying to protect the parent from whatever they're struggling with.
Sure.
So I would check in with that first. And if the young person is very connected to a church or is very spiritual, is there a priest or a pastor that they would rather talk to and open up to a little bit? I think that those are some other good options, family, friends. Or even if it was another young person, but someone who was a little bit more mature, a little bit older, so not like another 16 or 17-year-old, but maybe there's that cousin who's 21 who they've always looked up to. Maybe that would be a good person to ask to check in with them.
I had a teenager this week that was feeling really anxious, and I asked about counseling, and she really was interested, but she said, I don't want my parents to worry about me. So she was afraid to initiate counseling because of that. So maybe asking that question and being very direct about it might take some weight off the teen.
Absolutely. Opening that door up might be a relief for them.
I can't tell you how many times, we've initiated those conversations and we were able to be those people for our patients. So, if all else fails, bring them to your pediatrician. We're happy to try and help facilitate that. And we do find that if you step out of the room, a lot of times your teen will talk.
Right.
So what if your teen says, I've tried counseling in the past and it didn't work? What do you say to that?
Sure. I think we really need to empower our young people to say, if you met with someone and it didn't click, then maybe you should just try someone else. If they go to a therapist and they meet with that person 2, 3, or 4 times and they don't feel like there's a relationship, or they don't feel like that therapist is understanding of what their experience is, it's time to move on. Let's find another provider. We need to let our young people know that they're not going to like everyone that they meet. We have all probably had jobs where we didn't like everyone that we worked with, or we didn't feel connected with them. We go to a social situation, we meet someone, we could leave, take it or leave it. So I always encourage people, if that first person didn't work, try another one, see if you can find someone that you do connect with. But individual therapy isn't for everyone. There's also other types of therapy. Family therapy, sometimes a young person is more likely to go see a new provider if their mom or their dad's coming with them and they see this as more of a family issue, not just a me, I'm broken, I need to be fixed issue. And then there's group therapy as well.
Great. And I also find that sometimes teens will stay in a relationship with their therapist because they feel bad, even though it may not be a therapeutic relationship. So I always try to encourage them, that's okay. You can switch to a new counselor, a new therapist. And,
They might like their provider, but saying, but I'm not feeling like I'm getting any better.
Sure.
And that provider wants them to get better. So if someone's not getting better with me, and even though we have good rapport and we seem to enjoy each other, I would much rather have a young person move on to someone else who can help them reach their goals.
And I think it's important to normalize that from the onset of a therapeutic relationship, that, hey, the first person might not work out. You might have to try a few people before you find that person that helps you and clicks with you.
Yep, absolutely. And for some people, therapy is just not going to be the number one thing on their list, and that's okay. But we should be talking to our young people about other ways that they can feel better and take care of themselves. So things like, are they getting any exercise? When we exercise, we're releasing endorphins. Also, when we're exercising, if your young person's anxious, they're burning adrenaline and cortisol. That's making them feel anxious. So lots of good rigorous exercise is great. Are they eating well? What's their sleep habits look like? Our teens tend to not sleep very well. They tend to stay up really late at night, get in a few hours of decent sleep, go to school all day, and then maybe they're crashing in the afternoon. But disruptive sleep can also mimic signs of depression in young people and adults. So just talking to them about self-care is a nice first step.
And empowering them to make that plan themselves, right? Because they're not going to stick to something that their parents are telling them to do.
Right.
Again, not the finger wag conversation. If you want to feel better, you should do this and you should do that. It's, I'm worried about you. I love you. I want to be on your team. What can we do to make a plan to help you to feel better?
I think that's an excellent approach.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Crib Notes, and thank you so much, Lori, for being on with us.
That was my pleasure.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Bye! Always remember, your child's health and wellness is nuanced by their unique physical makeup, as well as your family's particular social, economic, and environmental situation. Please always consult your own pediatric providers when making decisions about your child's care.